All right,
Cool.
it's Toby from Heavyweight MMA today with Turkish Australian MMA fighter Kaan Ofli, fresh off his big win on Hex Fight Series 25. How are you, bro?
Yeah, I'm good, brother. How are you?
Good, man. As I was saying, it was a brilliant fight between you and Jarrett Wilbraham, both for your fans and also Jarrett's, because it was a great war, backward and forward action, man. Definitely made the night. It was the best fight of the night, and that's what they said it was too. So
Yeah, 100%, man. Yeah, the main event living up to its standards. So yeah, wrapped about it.
yeah, man. You just mentioned about going to a Mark Harden dinner, bro. What's that one about?
Just going to an event tonight with a few friends. So it should be good. Lisa and Raja as well, and a few of the Hex guys. So yeah, good way to end the night.
That's it, bro. Man, I wanted to talk to you for a couple of reasons, man. Obviously, great fight. You've got a great record, 8 wins in a row, man. Looking like one of the best in Australia, looking to kind of get up there, go towards your UFC contract, which is kind of a dream of yours, right? But also you train with Absolute Gym, Farjak Jenkins, who I've spoken to quite a bit, who's doing really well at the moment. And also done a few interesting things in your fighting and training, bro. So yeah, I want to have a chat with you.
Yeah, awesome, man. Thanks for having me on.
So, man, one of the interesting things I saw was that you trained at Bali MMA, and that kind of is of interest to me because I've met a couple of the guys that trained there in the past. I don't know if you know Hamish and Ev Ting, who trained out of there for a while. And I've also seen that, is it Andrew Leone or something that was training he was fighting out of Asia a bit. Like I saw him in Hong Kong, I saw him in Macau as well.
Yeah, Andrew and Anthony, the two brothers, legends, man. You know, they did a lot in the one championship and also in the Russian scene as well. Like Anthony, was flying over to Dagestan or Chechnya, I remember, and he's fighting one of their toughest guys. So yeah, it was a really good experience, and there's a lot of good guys out there. Really good friends with Ev Ting now. Like we always kind of catch up whenever we can. When I was in Auckland and whatnot, he's a crazy fighter. I love Ev Ting. So yeah, there's a lot of martial artists now in Bali, as well as Thailand. So it's a good little destination to get out and train sometimes. But I was living there for a year, so yeah, that was cool.
How is it, man? Like, is that like from the things they post, it's a pretty tropical location, right? There's some beaches and that nearby. How does that feel? Does it feel like a bit of a holiday at the same time as a training camp?
Yeah, 100%. You can make it out that way, where you're kind of just really immersing yourself into the lifestyle where you're just training, and then you've only got a 30-second or a minute scooter ride, to the beach or to your home, and you're just resting, eating, just immersing yourself into the martial arts lifestyle. I guess taking away some responsibilities as well, though.
And what do you
Always.
think about the comparison between like some of the gyms in Thailand compared to the Bali MMA out of interest?
Obviously you have in Thailand, you've got that, the base, art, which is a Muay Thai. And so you're always going to get your good striking in, wherever possible, and pad work in Thailand, so some people would prefer the weather, difference, or even location wise for them. So they've both got their benefits. But obviously Muay Thai is Muay Thai. So
Man, it's a good thing that you get to get around the world and travel and get to also train, right? You mentioned in one of the interviews that you'd planned to go to the US for like a 2-year stint to train. Did you ever get to do that?
I never got to do that. It was kind of just something that we were speaking about in terms of, what do we have to do to really, get some fights and stay active, and just be in the eye of the UFC, but that didn't really end up happening. And I'll probably still go over there and do some training, but I've got a good thing going here now, and I've been active, and I've kind of done the things that I was kind of wishing to do, so yeah. Another reason why I kind of kept doing this is because I love the traveling part, is when you're not in a position to kind of go on, and see the world, but you can go see it through fighting and your martial arts and what you do. It's a bit of a cool experience. Not everyone gets to do it, and I'm grateful for that as well. I kind of like went out and seeked for it. You know what I mean? I kind of for them opportunities and kind of took them on. So no, it's something that other Australian fighters don't really have, that international experience, even if it's training or fighting, so yeah.
Yeah, man, you mentioned about getting those different looks, right? And that's a pretty important thing. I think, like, you look at the guys that have gone to Thailand and trained pretty extensively, like you Kai Kara France, Dan Hooker, you've seen Izzy over there, Alex goes over there. These guys, and Dan actually mentioned it, they get these looks. They get to face all these different looks and different feels, and that's going to add to your skills, right? If you stay in Australia, it's going to be, I'd say predominantly it's going to be stand-up based, right? Because not everyone's got that strength of wrestling and that. And that's kind of one of the big ways you can actually get that wrestling experience up, right?
Definitely, all sorts of experience. Like you said, mentioned them few names. They're probably the guys that I would say that like are really experienced. Like true experience. Going around, seeing different looks, and what I mean, like being to different places in different parts of the world. They're all experiences in their own, and it's not always easy either. You know what I mean? You kind of come across a lot of unknown and adversity too, sometimes. So it's really, really beneficial for anyone to kind of go out there and expand their knowledge.
Man, just out of interest, talking about that expanding the knowledge in wrestling, like, where did you pick up your grappling style? Because to be honest, like, I hear your Turkish background, I'm thinking, I must have trained in Turkey, but then listening, you grew up in Australia, so you obviously didn't go there to learn wrestling. Where did you pick up your wrestling? Like, how did you end up with that strong wrestling style?
It was more so something that I kind of had to chop and change, like, along the years, like adapt my grappling style to MMA, because you can't just do jiu-jitsu, and you can't just wrestle. And, so I would say, like, submission wrestling, is like, if it was the term itself, that kind of best suits MMA, where you're using your wrestling to get your controls and your positions, but you have to have a good submission game. You know what I mean? Like, you got to take these guys out, and obviously defend submissions too. When you're up there, against a really high level black belt or grappler. So, I believe it gives me a lot of tools to dictate my fights, and I would say my superpower being, like, taking away your strength, and kind of adapting to each fighter and each fight and each, location and whatnot, So I think that's probably one of my best skills that I've got on hand that, people aren't aware of, just adapting in there.
Well, that's the best way to be, right? If you're comfortable that you can adapt your style rather than just being so bound into one thing, On that note, man, what do you think of Volk the other day? I mean, that's a good thing for Australian MMA, basically, right? Like, it's showing that you can train extensively in Australia, of course, with some training in New Zealand, some training in Thailand, training with the good guys over here, like Craig Jones, etc., and be able to defend the best in the world. The guys they say are the best grapplers in the world, right? And he defended it relatively easily. He was obviously put in a dangerous position, but he defended the submissions pretty well.
Yeah, no, he definitely showcased the best version of himself. You know what I mean? That wasn't a loss for him. That elevated him. So he's such a beast, man, and I've got so much respect for Volks. Like, he's just a weapon, and I love his style. So yeah, like, sometimes we forget, that just because we're so far away in Australia, we get forgotten a little bit. But now we've got the highest level of everything, if it's striking, grappling, wrestling, like, we're a power force right now, So at the same time, though, Volks has also, kind of lived in Thailand a little bit, and he tries to train with as much different bodies as well to also get them looks, So that's pretty awesome to see.
Yeah, man. And just before we talked about the traveling for training, you've also traveled a bit for fighting, which isn't as unusual. Isn't that usual for Australian fighters? Like, a few people do it, but not so many. Like, I saw in your resume, you fought in Jakarta, Indonesia, Abu Dhabi, Belgium. I think this is something like you mentioned it, but I think people should try and seek some fights outside of their comfort zone, outside of their country too, because it's a very different experience, right? And that sort of experience can lend itself to when you do hit the big time, that you're going to be a bit more comfortable being out of your element, right?
Yeah, definitely, man. Like my first experience was fighting in China, in Xi'an, China, like this real old city.
Yeah.
And we rocked up and like it's a huge stadium and it's got my face on it, you know. And I was like, what the hell is going on right now? You know, like that was my first experience of fighting overseas. And I was like, this is man, this is cool. Like this is the other side of it that, you know, you need to experience and immerse yourself into, you know.
Yeah, man.
You can't do this forever, you know what I mean? So yeah, no, it's cool. It's cool.
Yeah. Now you look at guys, man. Izzy Adesanya's another one, traveled extensively, fought in China.
Yeah.
Heaps of the guys, right? Actually, talking about China, I'm in China right now, to be honest, bro.
Oh,
But,
okay.
and one day here, it's an old story I've mentioned before, but I was like, someone goes, "Oh, there's a show on tonight, like a Muay Thai show." I'm like, "Oh wow, who's there?" And they showed me the poster. It's like Sanchai fighting Liam Harrison. I was like, "What the fuck?" Like, these are like they have the top guys come over here. There's a bit of a appreciation around China for fighting arts and martial arts and that. So there's a few things going on here that not everyone knows about, like tournaments and stuff. And that's where I think people get the right connections and you can fight. Like everywhere now has MMA. MMA is popular. There's fights in where I'm in Hong Kong, next to Hong Kong, Macau, China. There's fights around here. I'm assuming it happens everywhere in the world, but people don't necessarily seek out the fights out of their country and they're available, right?
Yeah, 100%. You know, if you want to stay active, if you want to challenge yourself, if you want to take on some new risks and whatnot, you know, but it's really cool and it's there, you know. Some people don't like getting out of their comfort zone as well, though, you know, so there's that element to it too.
Any of those places that you went felt pretty hectic, like anything shocked you or you felt a bit out of place or anything?
Uh, Definitely, I would say probably China. You know that I would probably felt out of place. Yeah, China's pretty cool, man, and yeah, very different. So, but yeah, just recently being able to fight in Belgium also was really cool. It's my first time in Europe, and just kind of being on land there and realizing, man, like you could drive half an hour, 1 hour to all these different countries, you know, and it's an experience that you obviously don't get in Australia. So,
Yeah,
no,
bro.
it's really cool.
For sure, man. Now, again, listening to some of the things online about you, man. Like you mentioned that you had a tough sort of upbringing, a few things happened in your life that made it difficult for you. It seems to be the story with a few successful fighters that have had obstacles when they're young and that. Do you think it kind of lends itself to being a good fighter, to have those obstacles and overcome them, deal with some problems when you're young, and then, that helps to add to your probably your fortitude to keep going in a tough time, to push through pain, to push through difficult training, etc.?
Definitely, I think there's a correlation there, you know, between people that have gone through a lot of hardship and then also, you know, become very successful or have created an empire. And this is not just in fighting, you know, this could be in anything, any sport or any business or whatnot. So, yeah, you know, you get taught the hard way, you know, to deal with the adversity and learning about yourself and others and essentially becoming a better human. You know what I mean? You've only got two ways when you're kind of in front of something so harsh in life, or something that's unlucky or whatnot. So yeah, you've only got two choices. You know what I mean? Breaking, not dealing with it, or overcoming it. So that translates into the MMA cage, and fighting all the time. You know, when you're up against something or a situation that you haven't been, come across before. Like fuck, I got hit hard, first round, right hand. You know what I mean? Like, and I was like, man, life's hit me harder though. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not like that's just gonna put me out. You know what I mean? So, but some people, man, Jared throws that right hand on anyone else. You know what I mean? I guarantee you that they'd probably want to get out of the cage. You know,
Yeah.
so yeah.
No, man, it's yeah. it was a great fight. Anyway, I'm a big fan of Jarrett's as well, bro. But yeah, obviously, like I wanted to ask too, like about your choice to do MMA. The way you talked about it in one of the interviews was you chose between army and MMA. It sounded quite a matter of fact. Like, did you have a full passion for martial arts, or was this like you just chose it? Like, this is one thing I can do, let's do it. Like, or you had that real passion for it?
Oh yeah, I was kind of thinking about this the other day, and it, all I can probably just think is I've always had a purpose in warfare.
Mm.
Something, something that's going to challenge me, something that's, I don't know, but I believe that this is what I was born to do, and be involved in some sort of combat. And this, the first kind of fight name that came across, me was Genghis, and I just went with it. It just made sense to me, where I can channel my inner warrior, and essentially battle. And I think that was the reasoning, between the whole military thing, because I was like, back then I didn't know, but I was like, man, I have to go to war, like I have to fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I can think, really. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm going with. That's what I'm accepting, and I love it. It fuels me, it makes sense, it feels like a jacket that fits. So yeah.
That's nice, man. Actually, it just popped into my head. I've got a Mongolian woman who comes to one of my kickboxing classes. Her name's Oyuna. Shout out to Yuna. She likes the music, like some Mongolian sort of rock music comes out. It's pretty sick. I put it on for her sometimes when we're training. But she says Chengiz. In Australia, we always say Genghis. She says Chengiz, and I'm sure she's the one.
Yes.
Yours is in between the two. It's like I'm not sure how the pronunciation, but
Yeah, mine's kind of like in a I would say Turkish terminology, but Chingiz is probably the true form of
that's the one.
saying
Yeah,
that in Mongolian, I guess, but that region is so connected, man, and like there is so many countries that like you could go through, and they all kind of live the same lifestyle and look the same way and eat the same food. So it's a pretty cool part of the world. Yeah.
That's it, man. There's been a few good fighters from the same areas, right? Hey, man. So talking about MMA and that, there's good and bad sides. What would you say? This is a full-time career. What would you say are the good things? You mentioned traveling and taking advantage of that. What are other good things, and what's the bad side of MMA? Do you think?
It's not for everyone, man. It is hard. It's not easy. It's a lifestyle. You can't do it half-assed. Like you gotta be immersed into it completely. You got to be spending all your hours thinking about it or practicing it. And that's why I have a lot of respect for people that had to work and do other things and go through all sorts of sacrifices to kind of be where they are, or to be in the UFC. So I have a different type of respect for them type of people.
Man, there's like it's a difficult thing. I struggle with it myself because I know the effort that you guys put in. Because I've just trained and fought at amateur level striking, and that it's nothing even compared to what you guys do, and that's hard enough. So I really feel like it's not rewarded enough. And then, like for now, you've achieved success. You're the best in the whole country, one of the best in the whole country, right? But you're still not getting what you deserve in terms of pay. And to get that, you got to be the best in the world, and not just the best in the world, like the top few in the world, bro. So, it's a long path, and it's a big struggle with danger on every side, because you can hurt yourself just doing some basic training and stuff, man. Like, it's a really difficult path to follow, man.
Yeah, it is. And unfortunately, I guess that's just the time that we're in right now. I believe it won't be that way in 5 years, 10 years time. But the sport is very new, but it's already established as the best sport in the world, hardest sport in the world. It's very exciting, So I guess, that's why I am the best in Australia now. So that's why I want to go into the UFC, and I want to prove myself, and showcase my skills to the rest of the world, and and start getting some of my investment back.
That's it, man. And how is it as far as making a living, man? Like, you obviously get some sponsors, you get your fight purse, etc. Is it enough to get by? Is it dismal? Is it good? It just depends, I guess, fighter to fighter. But how do you think it feels for you?
No, like for me, like everyone's in a very, different situation in their life and personal life and everything like that. But I've basically had to live very minimalistic, my whole life. It's very hard for me to kind of plan and do big things. I'm 29 and I bought my first car like 2 months ago, and it's a $5,000 Toyota Corolla.
Yeah.
Wrapped. But that's anytime that I've kind of come across money, I've had to reinvest it back into my career. And if that means not being out of work, or if that means, training at a certain place and, expanding my knowledge and getting better, I always did that, so I didn't buy fancy cars or clothes or, go on expensive holidays or have a house. Like, I've lived pretty basic, to be honest. And I've had to work, I did like bricklaying for 4 years, I've always done coaching, I've done demolition work. So I've always worked, you know what I mean? But there's been, when you're in training camp, I don't like to work, or, if I've got a fight really close, I don't like to work. So I like to just, be a full-time fighter. So, and that's hard to do, because you sacrifice a lot of things, even the basic things with going out with friends and family, for dinners and parties or whatever, people do. But, so it's really hard, but I'm confident, you know what I mean? I'm confident I've got my head straight, and I believe something's good around the corner, and I want to make the most out of it.
Yeah, man. What you said, it reminds me of Jarrett, to be honest, because I talked to him recently, and that's why at the time watching your fight, I'd talked with Jarrett. I hadn't talked with you, and I was actually supporting Jarrett. And it feels bad to see him lose, because he's got all these hopes and dreams just like you do, right? And he's living a minimalist life as well. He's living in a van, man, like with his girlfriend most of the time. It's like that's a big sacrifice. He mentioned the same, like his brothers have got houses and whatever, and he's just like living minimally, doing what he can to try and get to the top and then, reach those rewards. So yeah, it's a difficult life for everyone. Yeah. Yeah. Hard stuff.
Yeah. It's not easy for the people that want to go, 100% at it, to be the best they can, so yeah, it's not easy. But yeah, respect to Jared. Some people have it easier, some people don't. But this is the world that we're in, you know what I mean? So, and that's that fight reflected that as well.
That's it, man. And looking at your record, man, you're only one of the only people that people might not know that you beat McGregor. We won't mention that it wasn't Conor McGregor, but you beat McGregor.
Just McGregor's enough, so
that's it.
It's related to me.
I'll be sharing that around.
Good spot. Yeah.
Hey, man. So your plans, but while it was a while back, that interview about training overseas, getting into UFC, take out the training part. Your aim is obviously to jump into UFC. How do you do that, bro? Like, how does someone get noticed by them now? Is there, your camp's got a couple of people in there? I mean, Absolute's got a couple of people in there. How does it work to get in there? Like, is it someone putting a word in for you? Because most things in the world work by connections, right?
Yeah, definitely. This world's based around your network, and who really, essentially. There's like obviously we have Jack Jenkins in, so there's a dialogue there with matchmakers, and there's a few other managers kind of putting in the word and whatnot. So so hopefully in the next few days or a week, we'll get some kind of dialogue back and see see if we're going to get onto like a Singapore card or a Dana White Contender Series towards the end of the year. I don't know, but like obviously I'm happy to accept anything. You know what I mean? I just simply want to be part of the UFC, and I want to be fighting in that cage. So yeah, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. I don't know what else I can kind of really do, but I think right now it's just getting a good dialogue.
And UFC's what I hear coming out of your mouth quite a bit over your interviews. Is there any consideration for the others, or it's just UFC or nothing?
My number one preference is fighting in the UFC. That's the goal. That's the dream.
Yeah, it seems to be that's what most people want, right?
No, yeah, 100%. You know, then again, we're trying to get paid as well. You know what I mean? Trying to level up a little bit in life, and do you know what I
Yep.
mean? Kind of. So if PFL, you know, offers something crazy or something cool, whatever, like, you know, that feels like, you know, that's a step up, then it may be a consideration. But yeah, obviously UFC first.
Yeah, man. It's good to see a couple of the other organizations stepping up a bit, man, and making it like, you know, worthwhile to go there, right? Like PFL, Rob from Tasmania, you know, did really well. Got a million, right? $1 million prize purse at the end of that tournament. So that's awesome. You know, that's something that, you know, he's in UFC, didn't achieve that there, went over and got that. And then I know a couple of guys in ONE FC have done really well as well. So yeah, there's the other opportunities as well coming up, and you know, I hope that we can have more and more of these organizations stepping up to be competitive, you know?
Definitely, you know, and there's some, even some random, like, you know, promotions doing $1 million, you know, European tournaments and stuff like that. So it's just, you know, sometimes in Australia we're just so far away to even have these opportunities, you know. So, but yeah, obviously at this caliber now, you know what I mean. You know, I would like to take on some, you know, extra challenges.
Yeah. But out of interest, like in the fight scene in Australia, the MMA fight scene, what would an entry level pro versus like a top of the line pro in Australia be? What would the range be roughly for a fight?
Um, it's really hard to say, you know, but my first 3 fights I got paid nothing, you know, and
In
then
pro or amateur?
in pro,
That's
yeah.
terrible. Yeah.
Maybe went up to about $500 from there onwards, you know, a few.
Yeah.
And yeah, I haven't been paid more than $5,000, you know, which doesn't, yeah, that was like on an international promotion, you know, so that
Yeah.
was like the most I ever got paid. So you can see how it's like, you know, it's quite hard, you know,
Yeah.
it's a month or two, you know, of working, you know what I mean? So yeah, it doesn't really cover your expenses or what you put into a training camp, you know, 8 weeks or more, or whatever
Yeah.
it is. You're always training, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? If you want to be doing this at the highest level. But yeah.
Yeah, it's 100%. Like I just look at it as like an effort, right? Like, so you go to a day job, you work to a certain level, you're probably pushing yourself fucking 30% or something, right? Like, and you're getting a paycheck. And some of those paychecks are more than you guys who are pushing yourself like probably your body to close to its limits, right? You know, every day, like pushing. It just doesn't seem just, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Really, really.
I've had so many mental battles, you know what I mean, about that. You know, we're just like, fuck, like, you know, like what am I going to do, you know, or, you know, you know, how am I going to work this out and that out, and kind of putting pressure on myself, you know.
Yeah.
So it's not really a good place to be either, you know, to be honest, because yeah, just it can take away a little bit from
Yeah.
your art, you know, and what you're doing, you know. So
True, man. And
uh,
the focus
yeah,
should be, bro, like, you know, like in the way we've grown up in this sort of day and age, it's like all based on commercialism, like who's got a nice car, watch, clothes, etc. When at the end of the day, you look beneath the surface, man, you guys are experiencing stuff that other people don't get to experience. You're showing your grit and determination more than anyone else. So like strip back the layers, man, and you guys are number one. Of course, on the surface, you look at people flashy clothes and all that, and you think, fuck, that's success. But is it really success in the end? It probably isn't, man. You know, I'd say the most successful people would be guys like yourselves that have, you know, put everything into something, you know, and achieve something. So, you know, it just depends how we look
definitely.
at it, right?
That's so rewarding in itself, you know. Um, yeah, you can't put a price tag on that. Yeah.
Exactly, 100%. Bro, on that, like, what's your kind of daily schedule? Just now, you go back into training. You won't be actually fighting for anything for a while. So, what would your normal schedule be? You'd be training how many times a day? How many days a week? What sort of things do you do?
Yeah, so I'm just having like a little rest now, which I always do after my fights, and yeah, I'll be getting back into training. I train like twice a day, every day, like as like a that's just what I do, you know.
Yep.
Like, you know, some days might be one day, you know, I might be training once, but you know, I'll be doing some sort of recovery or something like that. But I've kind of just made it like a lifestyle now, where I just train twice a day, well, like every day, you know. Even I've been training on weekends as well, you know. You know, obviously you have to manage and balance, you know, everything that you do. So I'll just, yeah, go back to some skill development, or maybe even go to maybe Thailand or Bali, you know, in this time where, you know, we're kind of working out what the next move is.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll take it from there.
But what's your feelings like? Obviously, training a couple of times a day takes it out of you. What's your feeling on rest and recovery and diet? Like, what do you do for yourself? Like, how do you navigate that?
Yeah, diet's probably a big one. You know, if I'm not eating well, like I am right now, celebrating with my food, the body definitely is not fueled the right way, you know. So nutrition is number one, yeah, for fuel and recovery, and I would say sleep, you know. So just trying to get always every night 8 hours sleep. You know, I don't watch movies no more, you know, like, or TV. Like I barely turn it on anymore, you know. So when I get home, I eat and you know, do what I need to do, but that's it. I don't waste time because I try and get that sleep in.
What about the nutrition? Do you actually have a nutritionist, or you do it on your own?
Yeah, I've got Jack, the fight dietitian, which is he's a nutritionist that helps me for my cuts, and you know, depending on where I am in my camp, will make the adjustments. One of my good friends, Chef Anthony Dispenza, I go to his restaurant in Melbourne, Ronnie's, and he's worked for Dan Bislarine and whatnot. So he's a pretty popular guy, and he knows how to cook. So I was with him yesterday, and he said, "Man, I'm gonna come. I'm gonna make some meals, you know, some healthy meals that will go into your training, but obviously with some flavor." So and just see what happens with that.
Nice, nice. Man, what do you think about these like 1%ers? Like everyone goes on the fads and that. Like example of saunas and ice baths and whatever else people are sort of doing to add that little extra percentage on.
With what I've probably found with that now is like experiment with it, and if it feels good, like do it. You know what I mean? Like it shouldn't be like priority over, you know, it should still be like down the list of things that you should be doing, you know, which is like eating, sleeping, you know, recovering, you know, just managing your body, you know, strength conditioning, you know, your mobility work and all that. Like that's the type of stuff that you feel, you know, instantly good, you know. So and then if you got extra time, you know, you do your saunas and cryotherapy and ice bath and whatnot. They all have benefits, you know, science-based benefits. Yeah.
And on that list of things you mentioned, in the training side of things, would you say like where does skill development sit for you now that you're pretty developed? Is that something that you work on extensively, or is that the same as like when you're smashing the pads and doing your normal stuff? Like how much of a part of your training is the skill development side?
Yeah, I think I just personally have like my phases, like I've got like yearly goals, you know, so I'll break them down into quarters, you know, so maybe, you know, for 1 or 2 months, I'm kind of focusing on one thing, you know, in terms of skill development, if it's striking or if it's wrestling, grappling or submissions. And I kind of just cycle through it, you know, but I'm always trying to do some sort of skill development as well as my other stuff, because for me anyway, I'm trying to be the most all-rounded fighter. Like that, you know, like completely, because that's my advantage when I get into fights with anyone, you know, and if they have a hole, I want to be able to, you know, get in there. So.
Are we talking about fighting, bro? Or what?
You know what I mean. You know what I mean.
I understand. So, on the skill side of things, what do you kind of enjoy the most? Like if you're looking at, you know, the different sort of skill sets, you talk about wrestling, stand up, submission. What's your sort of favorite game to work on?
Luckily, I don't have a favorite. You know, luckily, because like, yeah, having a favorite will then, you know, mean that you don't put enough time into the other things. So
yeah,
I enjoy doing like everything. You know, like I like striking, and obviously the grappling, wrestling. You know, so yeah, I love it all if I think about it, bro.
yeah.
And some days just one's going to feel a little bit harder than the other, you know, if you're a little bit sleepy or if your body's a bit tired, you know, like that's why you're going to manage your training. But Yeah, I love it all, bro.
And on that about feeling tired and that, bro, when my example is I wake up every morning very early, I go to training. I would say 9 out of 10 times I wake up, I'm like, fuck, I want to sleep rather than fight myself. I have an internal battle. How often do you feel like that as a pro MMA fighter? How often do you think, fuck, I don't want to go to training, I'm tired, I'm hurt, or whatever?
Uh it's becoming less like mental and more like physical, where
Yeah.
it used to be mental, we're like, fuck, gotta, get through this next session or whatever. But recently it's just been like, nah, it's like this is what I'm doing, this is what we do. We don't
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
nothing else. We gotta we gotta get this guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but then sometimes just physically, where that's where I know like I've trained way too much. I've overtrained. Um, that's when or I'm doing, my weight cut as well at the same time. So the calories and the overtraining, you got to balance it. Um, I even had that with this fight, because I only had 2 weeks of hard training. So I had to like, boom, picked it up and I was training really hard. And I was also cutting weight. So, some days I was crashing, but I didn't care because I only had 2 weeks. So I was like, let's just smash the body. And then it was fight week on Tuesday and I was pretty cooked, so I was like, I've got to do some recovery now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fight week. And it was Tuesday. And I remember seeing on social media, I just did skills work in the morning. And I saw a video of freestyle MMA doing like this like crazy conditioning session. Like, I know the type of sessions that they do, so, and it was like a hard one. And I saw that and I was like, they're doing, he's doing a hard session, huh? I went to the gym at like 8 p.m. I did like 30 minutes of airdyne sprints for 30 minutes, like just hard, straight.
Yeah.
Just because it was like that little mental battle. I was like, nah, he can't train harder than me.
Yeah.
Even though my body was wrecked, so
That's what they
yeah.
say. It's like, yeah, you see the guy doing something, you want to outdo him, and that's a competitiveness that you need to be an elite fighter, right? You've got to be one-upping people. Actually, I mentioned to Jack the other day, I was talking to him online, and we talked about the old principle. One of my old coaches said, if they give you a dollar, give them. Yeah, give them. If they give you 50 cents, give them a dollar. Same sort of thing. You see him doing 50 cents, you do a dollar. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'll tell you a funny story. In that video, I saw Colby and him training together and they were getting around. And Colby got his back and gift wrapped it in. And I was just watching it. And I was like watching it subconsciously. But then I was like, wait a second. And I was like, Colby, like, he just presented something to me. And I was like, Colby can take your back, man. If at any time I take your back, I'm going to gift wrap you and I'm going to give you a nice little present and put you to sleep. And that vision was in my mind. And, so when I got him down, I was like, I had already created the pathway in my head, like it was already set, like it was a strategy already in one of my pockets. And, I forced him to give his back, and, it was, and then it all happened like I thought it would. Yeah.
That's very interesting, man. The dangers of social media, man. Don't go posting too many things because it might put the wrong thing into the wrong guy's head.
But hey, a lot of people are watching stuff. A lot of people are doing things. You have to apply it. You have to do it.
Yeah.
And I can kick back and watch a ton of kung fu movies and whatnot, but I'm never going to actually I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to pull it off. So yeah, once again, being able to be all rounded, and in the moment, attack and find your moment, make it your moment. Yeah, it's dangerous.
That's it, man. Man, just a couple of quick questions to finish up. I like to ask this question because, you guys are real focused on your body and training. And like I said, I have trouble with motivation here and there. I'm sure everyone does. What are your tips for like motivating yourself? How can people motivate themselves, no matter what it is, trying to get up in the morning, go to the gym or whatever they need to do?
Yeah. I guess you need to find a purpose. Firstly, why you want to do them things. But more importantly, you have to do it for yourself, you know, even if you don't have an external purpose, you know, if it's family, wife, kids, you know, just for yourself, you know, to be a better version of yourself, you know, be healthier, be thinking better, you know, be feeling better, you know, that should be a number one like motivation, you know, to begin with, you know, even if you can't find any purpose in your life, you should be doing it for yourself.
Yeah, bro. And the last one is just like your tips for kind of like true health, you know, because health isn't always about your body. It's about, you know, it's a holistic thing. So any tips that you would say for people just to be truly healthy?
Yeah, you just, I guess, have to, you got to apply yourself in that way, you know what I mean? You know, and if there's anything toxic around you, you know, you have to get rid of it. Um, you know, there's that quote where they say you are, you know, who you surround yourself with, you know, the 3 or 5 people, you know, that you can count on your hand. And all these things, you know, it matters, you know, who you surround yourself with, you know, what you're talking about, you know, the energy that you're wasting, you know, it will all reflect into your own life. So, um, yeah, just be a good human, man. You know, everyone's just got to be good to each other and show love, you know. So I think that's just number one, man.
That's it, man. Good, good. All right, man. Looking forward to seeing your further success on both the Australian scene and jumping into the international scene. Hopefully fighting in the UFC sometime in 2023. Thanks for your time. It's good to talk to you, bro. And I hope that I can keep in contact and follow you on your rise to the top, bro.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. It was great chatting with you and meeting you. So hopefully we can do it, do another one once I get that contract.
Cool. All right. Thanks, bro. Thanks for your time.